Hi everyone, I want to welcome you to another in the series of my how-to videos. This one is, I'm just going to demonstrate to you how I like to bevel and make my control surface hinges on my park jets, and this would probably work on just about any other kind of foamy airplane. Now there's all kinds of ways to make hinges for park jets. In the bad old days, it started off with tape. I know there's a lot of people that use like fiberglass mesh drywall tape, and then put that on, and then spread thin layers of glue like foam tack or other glues that can dry fairly flexible. And sorry, pardon me. And I used to use those for quite a while, but because of cost and other things, I actually came back to using tape. So I've already pre-cut some tape. I'll just demonstrate. This is actually, you're not going to be able to see probably in the inside, but this is called 3M tough transparent duct tape, and I can buy this at the Home Depot in Canada. I know a lot of people in the US, we use like 3M Scotch or 3M Extreme packing tape. It's very hard for me to get that here in Canada, and if I order online it becomes cost prohibitive. So I found that this stuff works really well. I've also experimented with the Duck, D-U-C-K, like quack quack brand of transparent duct tape, and I don't find it worked for me quite as well. It doesn't have as many fibers. This has a lot of fibers in it for strength, and I didn't find that the adhesive worked quite as well, but this stuff works. I found that this stuff has worked great for me on with Depron model plane foam, Dollar Tree foam, or Adams Ready board. I've got planes that well over 300 flights using this as the hinge material. Never had a problem with any of the hinges coming apart, and it's been very weather resistant. I store my planes in the garage, so my planes have been stored at well below freezing, -5 Celsius, and as high as 30 Celsius, and flown in those same conditions, and I've never had a problem with the adhesive coming off. So I'll discuss some other little tips about it later. So what I'm actually going to show you today is I'm going to show you how I like to do my elevons, because I put an extra layer on the other side on both the top and the bottom of my elevons, just as kind of insurance. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So it's pretty simple. I've just cut out a couple pieces of foam here to represent a plane and a control surface, piece of a plane and a control surface. So it's you just simply need two tools, a metal straight edge, and a knife. And you don't necessarily always have to go with a brand new blade, but you want a blade that's nice and sharp, because you're going to be cutting at sort of an angle here, and you want it to be nice and crisp. You don't want it, if you have a dull blade and you start sliding it across the foam, you don't want the foam to tear, and then your hinge line gets all uneven. So what I normally do is I probably bevel all of my control surfaces all around the same time. So what I'll do is I'll just put a brand new fresh sharp blade. I really like this knife. I got this again at the Home Depot, I think. It's really tough, solid metal handle. And what I do is, because you go through a lot of blades when you're building park jets, this is like a contractor 100 heavy-duty utility blades, which essentially is 200 blades, because you can flip, you can flip the blade over, so you've essentially got two blades there. But okay, well, enough about my goodies. But what I was going to say is, keep an eye on these, because sometimes Home Depot, Lowe's, your local hardware store, if these go on sale, it's good to pick up a bunch, or a pack, and then you'll always have lots of sharp blades. You can always get them at the dollar store too. I've seen some dollar stores will send them like packs of 10. All right, so let's get down to the how we do this. So you take your metal straight edge, and you put it right on the very edge of where your hinge line is going to be. Okay, hold it down nice and firm. Obviously keep the tips of your fingers back so you don't slice them, and then you just sort of hold it takes, you know, this is another one of those things, especially if you're new to the hobby. Get some scrap foam and just, you know, just kind of practice until you sort of get a bevel. It doesn't have to be a perfect 45 degree. All we're doing is we're just cutting out enough space so that the control surface can deflect sort of as far as you need it to without it binding or anything. So again, just, you know, maybe around close to a 45 degree angle with your knife, and then just hold it against the straight edge, and then just very slowly just slide it along there. So that, I had a nice fresh blade there. So essentially I just got, you know, a little chunk, and again, I'm probably only at about maybe a, I don't know, 30 degree angle there. It's not a big angle, but you got to remember you're going to have another angle on the other side as well. Okay, so that's, let's say that's my plane, and now I need to bevel my control surface. So again, the same thing. Maybe I'll hold it this way this time. So again, holding down the straight edge nice and firm, knife at about a 45 degree angle, just very slowly slide it across. And sometimes you might need to make a couple runs there to get it nice and clean. Oh. So there we go. So I got a little bit more of an angle on that one. Okay, so let's just put those scraps out of the way. I'm done with the ruler. So now, you know, take the two surfaces, put them together. You may end up with, you know, because of how you've cut it, you know, you may end up with a little bit, you know, of a gap. Don't sweat that too much. So just lay those two nice and straight. And then I've already pre-cut a couple of pieces of tape here. So then just take your tape, and I just, you know, on the top I'm just kind of splitting the tape down the middle with the hinge line, and then just, you know, give it a good smoothing out there. There. So there's your hinge. So, you know, that's, I mean, for me, for my part jets, that's way more deflection than I ever need, but now I've got a basic hinge. So for my rudder and my ailerons, I just use the one side. I've never bothered with the insurance reinforcement on the other side. So for my elevons, like I mentioned, I like to have a little bit of reinforcement. So how I do that is I just kind of flip the hinge back on itself, sort of like that. Again, I have another piece of tape pre-cut here. So I'm kind of thinking that I just want to put about a third of the width of the tape this way, sort of on this small surface, because some of the tape is going to get taken up as you smooth it into the beveled part. Okay, so smooth that down so that it's got a nice firm grip. And now what I do is I just kind of gently just sort of pull it, and then I smooth it all along the one angled side there on the one surface. Okay, so I've got a nice smooth, you know, I'm trying to avoid as many wrinkles as possible, and then sort of flip it, and again with some gentle pressure, pull it, smooth it on the angle now of the big side, and then smooth that out and try and smooth as many wrinkles out as you can. So now when I fold it, you know, if there's any little wrinkles down the center of the inside of the bevel there, you can kind of just, you know, smooth them down with your thumbnail. Now what's going to happen is, you know, you may have seen pictures if you know, if you follow me on RC Powers, you'll see after I do this that my elevons have this huge you know, up trim, but it's just, you know, it's caused by tension on the tape. But this is never becomes a problem, you know, once I hook up the control surfaces. It's, you know, it's not giving the servos any problem. But the nice thing is now is I've got insurance, double insurance on my elevons. You know, on a park jet, your elevons, I mean, 99.9% of park jets will fly with elevons only, and your elevons are moving just about all the time when you're flying. You know, even if you use ailerons, your elevons are always moving, either, you know, in the pitch and the roll as you're yanking and banking around. And the other thing is that, you know, they're close to the prop. They're getting a lot of prop wash and turbulence, and stress and strain put on them. So I always find that you know, this tape doesn't add a whole lot of weight, and I find it just gives me that extra insurance. Touch wood, I've never had an Elevon hinge come apart this way. All right, so just another little tip here. If you paint your planes, it may be hard to see here if I hold it under the light. Well, I guess it's too far away. But this tape has, you know, quite a glossy finish to it. So if you want to paint that, if you paint it just like that with the glossy finish, what'll happen? Like I use acrylic, just inexpensive acrylic craft paints I get at the Buck store, Michael's, Walmart, you know, any craft store. If you just paint that on there, what it'll happen is as it moves, is the paint will just flake off. But if you take some sandpaper, this is just 220 grit, but just take some sandpaper and just kind of you know, give it just a gentle sanding until most of that, you know, as much of that sort of shine is taken off it as you can get. I would normally, when I build a plane, I'd probably do this with 150 grit. Just takes it off a little faster. So anyway, again, not sure if you can see that, but it's quite you know, almost like a satin finish now instead of a gloss finish. And you can, you know, just keep doing that gently. I mean, you don't you don't want to sand a hole through the hinge that you've just made. But now, you know, once you sand that gloss off, you can paint it. You know, and I don't have the paint flaking off. So anyway, so there we go. That's you know, that's how I like to make my control surface hinges on my park jet. I will put a link down below in the comments to where I got this tape. I found a link to it on Amazon, and you can have a, you know, picture. You'll be able to see a picture when you go to the link. So because obviously this doesn't have the label or the packaging on it anymore. But again, I get this at I can get it at my local Home Depot here in Canada, and I assume, you know, maybe Lowe's, other hardware stores depending on where you live. But this has worked super well for me for a long time in all conditions, and this little technique here works really well. My hinge is made, I don't have to worry about any glue drying. The other tricky thing I found when I used to use the glue was, while it was still tacky, if you put your plane down somewhere with the hinge down, you'd pick it up and it would all be covered in, you know, little bits and pieces of stuff, but this doesn't. So anyway, like I said at the start, there are you know, there are all kinds of ways to make hinges for foamies and park jets, and I'm certainly not trying to convert anybody, but if you're looking for ideas, that's what worked for me. And you know, I fly my planes pretty aggressively, and again, touch wood, I've never had a hinge come apart on me using this method and this tape, you know, in pretty much all conditions and over hundreds and hundreds of flights, even on the same airplane. So thanks very much for watching. Blue skies, calm winds to everyone. Park jet noise, the other sound of freedom. Take care.